All right, welcome. We're going to keep going with the conversation we had earlier a couple of days ago with Emad, who is a co-director with METO, who is a Middle East Treaty Organization, who worked to develop a treaty, a peace treaty between the Middle East country. And now I'm with the co-director. I'm with Sharon, who is in Israel currently, and I wanted to talk with her about the situation in Israel and, of course, about the situation with Iran and so on and so forth. Welcome.
Thank you, David.
Do you want to frame it a little bit more than I did? Do you want to explain a little bit more what is METO and the challenges in today's situation before we go more deeply about your situation in Israel?
So the Middle East Treaty Organization was starting around the understanding that in the Middle East we need regional solutions. And it started with the weapons of mass destruction free zone. That while since the 70s, there are calls for a nuclear weapon free zone and afterwards a weapon of mass destruction free zone in the Middle East, most of the practitioners, the states, the diplomats that were dealing with that, while calling for that, kept saying at the same time that it is impossible.
Yeah.
In 2016, we decided to explore the possibilities, found out that it is very possible, wrote a first draft treaty, and started advocacy around it until in 2018 it became a UN resolution. And since 2019, there's a UN conference, a yearly UN conference for the Middle East states and the permanent five, the nuclear five, that its mandate is to come up with a treaty, with a text freely arrived at. Right now, all of the states in the Middle East, apart from Israel, are participating. And out of the P5, all of them apart from Israel, so the US. So the US and Israel are boycotting this conference. And it's quite childish to boycott it, especially when this is the better deal that Trump is talking about when it comes to Iran.
Yeah. And when we see the scale of the conflict we are developing now, and the work you have done for many years could have avoided the complication we are facing today. Just tell me a little bit how your life's going in day-to-day situation. You were talking about having your passport always ready, having what?
Yeah, so we are basically, there's so many experts talking and guessing whether there's going to be a war, when the war is starting. I think that anyone that say that he thinks he knows something is a bit of
Yeah.
galomaniac, maybe, because the decision on a war is up to one person. It's quite scary. And this one person is Trump.
Yeah.
And Trump is moving lots of forces to the Middle East.
Yeah.
We don't know if he's moving too much for him to then back off. That's the only calculation that you can make. Did he put too much at risk that he now cannot have a war?
Yeah.
At the same time, he's talking about negotiations and about terms. So here it's you can't make plans, right? I was supposed to fly away. I don't know if I can fly because I don't know if I can come back. We're doing an event. We don't know if the event will happen. People don't know how to plan next week. And on the news every day, the question is it going to be a quiet night or is it the night where the war starts? And that's what all commentaries, mostly men, of course, talking about, calculating whether it will start tonight or it's not going to start tonight. The understanding is that even if Israel will not participate in the attack, that Israel will be Iran's target. So Iran cannot bomb the US
No,
back.
very
So we are the
clearly.
little US.
Yeah.
And so it's quite obvious for everybody that the Iranian answer will be Israel.
Yeah.
So, and we know that their missiles are not similar at all to the missiles that were shot at us by the Houthis or by Hezbollah. We're talking about a different shockwave. We're talking about buildings falling down. We're talking about different kinds of casualties. So I think people are a bit on edge, but after such a long time, it's almost like we're used to it.
Yeah.
So everybody knows what they're supposed to do.
Yeah. So, did you see any reaction after the board meeting in Washington last week? And how in Israel
I didn't hear you. Sorry, which meeting?
the peace board with Trump
Um,
who happened in Washington D.C. last week?
not enough. I mean, there is again, people are speculating, but that's what it is. It's speculations.
Yeah.
One thing. I told you that there was one thing I wanted to talk about what when Emad was talking, because I agree with everything he said.
Okay.
But
Yeah,
he
yeah,
said
go.
that Netanyahu came for 3 hours to Florida, to Mar-a-Lago, just for a 3 hours meeting with Trump, just to push Trump to bomb.
Yeah.
And there was one thing missing. There were two reasons for the meeting.
Okay.
And one of them was maybe to push Trump to start a war. The other one, and I think that was the more important one for Netanyahu, was his amnesty from his trial. And you could see that when the meeting was over, that Trump came out to the reporters and was bashing the Israeli president, the one that has, in some terms, the power to give Netanyahu his amnesty redemption from trial.
Yeah.
So it's just to show that these two are going together, the war and Netanyahu's trial. The reason for Israel, not Israel, sorry, for Netanyahu, for the Israeli prime minister to want this war has nothing to do with Israel's security.
Yeah.
It has nothing to do with Iran's nuclear program.
Yeah.
Netanyahu actually likes the nuclear program. It's his biggest power, as long as Iran developing nuclear or seen as if developing nuclear weapons, Netanyahu is needed because he's the only one that knows how to. Now, that's, of course, a very good campaign by him that couldn't have succeeded so much if we didn't have nuclear ambiguity in Israel.
Yes. And also, and it's the same also with Trump, he knows then if he gets out of power, he's going to have the court after him. Like, I mean, he might going to even start before, but both of them are into a red zone if they go out of power, where they could be arrested, they could have a lot of complication for their life, economically, politically, socially. I mean, it can get very complicated. So it's in some way, they need this crash to reorient the discussion to another direction, no?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think that Trump need the war with Iran. I don't really understand what he has to gain from it. I don't think that his voters appreciate that. I really don't know what he's gaining from that, apart from the fact that when he joined the attack in June, it made him feel good. And I think it's, we're talking about President Child, a child president.
Yeah.
And he can start the war.
I mean,
nobody knows how it's going to end.
I think for Netanyahu, in some way flating or striking Iran a big time will be some kind of important milestone on this political process.
It's an election year in Israel.
And I'm not sure which one of them have more power to the other. I don't know if Trump has to follow Netanyahu or Netanyahu has to follow Trump. That's a discussion we have in the US. We are not sure who has the power in Israel concerning the Israel situation here in the US, where because in some way the US will support and will follow Israel whenever the situation is. So that's where it gets a little bit complicated to understand the dynamic concerning Iran, where we don't know on which one of them is going to take the decision.
I think that in the first Trump term, it was quite obvious, and Netanyahu was taking pride of it, that that he has Trump's ear, and Trump. Netanyahu is, we call him a magician. Netanyahu is very good with putting himself as Mr. Security, Mr. Economy, Mr. And Trump was falling to it.
Yeah.
But since October 7, 2023, the relationship between them probably changed a bit. So it's no longer, if before it was quite obvious that whatever Netanyahu is whispering on Trump's ear will happen, and that's what brought us here, right? He whispered on his ear that the deal is bad, and Trump left a working deal, a working agreement, the agreement that made the Middle East much safer. And now look how many years later we still can't go back to a deal. Trump can't go back to a deal that he broke. Since October 2023, the relationship between them have changed. When Trump came back to power, he was still maybe friendly with Netanyahu, but he also found out, and sadly he didn't use it fast enough, that he can also squeeze Netanyahu.
Yeah.
And if he wouldn't have squeezed Netanyahu, we wouldn't have the end of the war with Gaza. It's not that this is a good end, right? It's not sufficient. There's still too much casualties, too much suffering, but at least it's not a daily bombing. It's not what we have, and it's because of Trump that we have the Israeli hostages back, those who survived the 2 years that Netanyahu didn't go for a deal.
Yeah.
And all the bodies. I mean, for the first time, we don't have any more hostages in years in Gaza, and that's because Trump knew that he has a power over Netanyahu, and he forced him.
Yeah.
And I think this has changed the relationship a bit. Netanyahu seemed from time to time like a loser, and Trump doesn't have that much respect for losers. But they still do have a special relationship. Maybe it's because of the evangelist. I don't really know, because nobody understands Trump for real.
But it goes beyond Trump. Huh? The support for Israel in the US it's almost, and I mean, it cannot. Obama was not even be able to touch it. It's a very deep. It's a very deep structure with very complicated to maneuver. So I think you can play in that frame, but you cannot question the framing of the relationship between the US and Israel, who makes the situation very complicated for the development of.
That was always the truth, but it might change. And one of the reasons that it might change was because it was this relationship was abused.
Yeah.
And it was abused by Netanyahu.
Yeah.
Again and again and again and again. And Mr. Security is the prime minister that singly changed Israel's relationship with the world. And he's also changing the relationship with the US. So yes, right now we have Trump. And sadly, this is now the only thing that keeps this relationship, because we know that there's a pendulum movement, right? So when Trump is leaving office, and hopefully he will next elections, there's going to be a movement. Will this movement also mean that because Trump and Netanyahu abused this relationship in this way, that the next administration will go away? Will there be support for that? I mean, we lost all our good points among the states.
International relation, huh? Yeah,
Yeah,
it's getting very complicated. Yeah.
yeah.
So I have two things on mind before we close. One thing is if you can describe a little bit what's happening with, you mentioned, but what's happening with the Palestinian Gaza and story situation now. And I know we still have a lot of casualty. We know it's not easy, but I think things are moving. I think the humanitarian help aid can get in some ways, but I think it's still very complicated. No.
It is very complicated, and as always, I mean, we discussed it in the past, and I'll bring it up again. There's so much power to call for aid for Palestinians. There's another flotilla coming up with 1,000 people, 100 ships. It makes me sick, to be honest, because take all this money, take all the equipment, and find a way to get it into Gaza. Flotilla is about, look at us, we're so brave. We're going against the Israelis.
I know.
Doesn't fit the Palestinians. Now,
I
as
know.
somebody that used to volunteer in Gaza for years,
Believe me, I
it
know.
breaks my heart to see
I
so
know.
much money and so much effort goes to not helping. There are so many organizations that can actually get food inside, money inside. There's so many networks that are doing it. It just doesn't take, you don't take good pictures and you don't look like a hero doing it. And this is something that needs changing.
Yeah.
To start rebuilding Gaza is going to take years and efforts and tons of goodwill that we don't have enough of. Again, now we have this new group with the Peace Council. Let's see what they're going to do.
Yeah.
I'm not sure. But I actually, before we go back to the Palestinians, I would like to talk a little bit, yes, about the nuclear weapons, Iran and Israel.
Yeah.
Because the terminology when it comes to Iran is very dangerous. First, there was an agreement. Iran did have a nuclear program. It ended in 2003. And yet, it seems like we are being sold the story that Iran is still trying to get nuclear weapons. Also, the minute that Iran will get nuclear weapons, it will bomb Israel with these nuclear weapons.
Yeah.
Now, it's so illogical that it blows my mind.
Yeah.
It's like, how illogical can you
Yeah.
be?
Yeah.
First,
Yeah.
can I?
Sure. Go ahead.
First, Iran is under the most strict verification and mechanism of compliance that any state agreed to under the JCPOA. It was Trump that stopped it. So there was monitoring on all those sites that Trump stopped because Netanyahu asked him. The second thing is um, the power of diplomacy is fed by the goodwill of the states that are party to these agreements. So first you kill the agreement. The second thing that is dying is diplomacy. In June, they were sitting for negotiations when Israel attacked. So now there are again negotiations, but at the same time, these negotiations are happening not with a big stick, but with two aircraft
I
carriers,
know. From the US.
and this is not negotiations.
Yeah.
Excuse me,
Yeah.
this is rape, patriarchy at its worst.
Yeah.
This is rape. This is not how you negotiate.
Yeah.
Because there's no goodwill in these negotiations. And negotiations have to have goodwill. I know it might sound hippie, but nobody wants to be raped into agreement.
Yeah.
This is not a good agreement. And when it comes to Israel, Israel is a nuclear armed state. even if it's supposed to be a secret, even if I'm not supposed to say it without saying according to foreign sources. But Israel is a nuclear armed state in the Middle East. The only nuclear armed state for now. For now. We have Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia doesn't have nuclear weapons, but they probably have a deal with Pakistan that does have nuclear weapons, and they have missiles that can carry nuclear weapons, and they have nuclear facilities themselves. So basically, it might be that the second state in the Middle East, or the closest state to become a nuclear armed state in the Middle East, is Saudi Arabia, not Iran. But Saudi Arabia is friends with the US and by extension with Israel. So nobody talks about that. And the reason I'm saying it is because I don't think that somebody now should go and bomb Saudi Arabia. Of course not. But look at how ill-informed the conversation is.
Yeah.
And inside Israel, the biggest problem is the ambiguity. The ambiguity became a threat to Israeli safety and security because we were supposed to keep it a secret that Israel is a nuclear armed state. But somehow, this secrecy became like a blanket. Instead of just not saying that Israel is a nuclear armed state, it became don't talk about nuclear issues. And when you don't talk about nuclear issues, and when the main media and actually civil society itself is adopting the secrecy, it means that anything that Netanyahu says that has the word nuclear in, they don't know how to answer to. So you have reporters that don't know to ask whether attacking Iran's nuclear facilities will actually, if it can stop Iran's nuclear program, it can't. If Iran is actually seeking nuclear weapons, they don't even know how to ask or just to ask the question of if Iran wanted nuclear weapons, how come for several decades that Iran is trying to become a nuclear armed state, how come they didn't build a bomb yet? When the US built the bomb in 1945 with the knowledge of 1945
I know, the
in the
science
middle
of
of
that time. Yeah.
Second World War, and they were all Americans with some Europeans.
Yeah.
So Iran couldn't build a bomb. So even asking stupid questions is beyond them,
Yeah.
and that exposed the Israelis to the one only narrative imposed by the one person that has everything to gain from Iran continuing its nuclear weapon because that's what keeps him in power. And that takes us back to Netanyahu going to the US to talk about two main things which are the same. Please attack Iran. Please talk about my amnesty because they are the same.
Yeah.
All of it is to keep Netanyahu in power.
Yeah.
And that's it. And in the words of what his wife, Sarah Netanyahu, said once when they lost the elections, let the country burn. They don't care about us.
So, Sharon, the next step really is going to be, now that you mentioned that frame very clearly, is going to be what is going to take to have removed Netanyahu from power, and how the international community can contribute to that dynamic in supporting the people who are working on that direction for many years, who have been tried and many times badly treated. I mean, many times under a lot of pressure. So how can this happen? And I will say, this is the same question we have here in the US, is how can we move on from I will not say just Donald Trump, but I will say how to move on from the whole administration, who are actively working to, in some way, destroy the US structure of governing. So, yeah.
I think it is fair to say that among the left in the US, people participated in more demonstrations to free Palestine than against the administration in the US. I think it is fair to say, to assume. look at the brave demonstrators in Iran. Learn from them. I know that Americans don't think that they have much to learn from us brownies, but look at the demonstrators there. This is bravery. And yes, look at the demonstrators in Israel. They are under missiles.
Yeah.
They're in the state of war where
Yeah.
most people gather around the flag, and yet there are weekly demonstrations here against the government and weekly demonstration for peace in Israel.
Yeah.
And yet we are being boycotted by our brothers and sisters
Mm-hmm.
that were supposed to show some solidarity to us because we are Israelis.
Yeah.
They think that they can judge us.
Yeah.
When we are peace activists, just like them, only we have to be a little bit more brave than them in order to demonstrate.
Mm-hmm.
So this is something that if you want to make a change in Israel, we're about to have elections. Right now, the current government doesn't stand a big chance to win, but it can happen, especially if there will be a war. This is the time to show solidarity with us.
Yeah.
But when you look at a society like Israel, and I want to remind you that Israel, in terms of states, is like a toddler. It's a toddler state. We just started, right? We're a very young state yet. We're going through things that are unexcusable. What we were doing in Gaza, unexcusable.
Yeah.
Yet we have the right to exist.
Yeah.
The language out there that questions our right to exist is everyone that talks like that is basically exactly what Netanyahu needs. Because what Netanyahu keeps telling his base and why people are moving from center to right and from left to center is because of this language. If the world is against us, then we owe the world nothing. If the world is against us, we need to defend ourselves. If the world is against us, and the point is that we do know that the question of our existence is a question. People don't think that it's a question. Now, when something is existing already, and there's a question about whether it should exist, it's a bit like the question. And that's not healthy. So there is a solution, like the two-state solution, that needs push and needs help around the world. There is civil society here that can use the help, whatever help, and this can be discussed. Inside Israel, we need to not lose hope. And I know that lots of people have lost hope, but there are also very strong groups that say that the hope dies last, and I'm with them. And when it comes to the US, look at what your state is doing. How come you lost hope? Show us how you fight against your own administration when your administration is doing things like ICE, right? But at the same time, also push your government to stop boycotting the one room existing in the world now where weapons of mass destruction in the Middle East are being discussed in a consensus-based negotiations. Iran is in the room, just like Iran is at the non-proliferation treaty where the US is sitting. No, the US is. But the US is boycotting the November conference on a weapon of mass destruction free zone in the Middle East. Stop boycotting it. Sit in the room. Create the mechanism that allow the states in the Middle East to look at each other.
Yeah. The space for discussion is there. If we wanted to have the discussion, we could do it in our bit. That's not the issue. It's beyond that level, and I think that's very clear for.
But if you're based in Washington, and you're talking to your Congress, push the US to join the room. Send somebody low level even. Okay, it's not like you have too much to contribute to the conversation right now, but send somebody. Show support for a peaceful solution. There is a peaceful solution. Instead of bombing the solution and start a war that we know how it will start, but might ignite the Middle East.
I need to ask you one more question and we'll wrap up. What is the story with China?
I don't
I mean,
know.
I ask everybody what's because China is becoming a big a big influencer in the world and doesn't work the same way as the European or the West does. So I just want to
I'm not a
understand.
specialist.
Yeah.
Imad understands China much more than I do, but I can
Okay.
tell you this.
Yeah.
China is playing a different game than the rest of the world.
Yeah.
While we have a cycle of let's make a decision about what we're doing tomorrow, China is deciding what they're going to do in the upcoming 500 years.
Yeah.
And that's unique. China could have had thousands of nuclear warheads, and they decided to get restricted in a much lower level. So to
And to
stay
do
nuclear
bridge
weapon
and to
state,
build train and bridges. Yeah.
yeah. China is the state that can talk to almost everybody in the Middle East. And I can tell you that when we are talking to states, we get some support from Chinese diplomats when it comes to let's sit and negotiate. I mean, there's a need for negotiations. To tell you that I know what, so I know that they think ahead for 500 years. What is it that they want? I'm not sure. I know that they want their own domination, their own, to always stay a superpower. They have their own traumas, they have their own history, which they don't want to repeat. And I think in that they're a little bit similar to the Iranians. And I think I would like to see them more active when it comes to the Middle East, especially if they'll continue with let's negotiate or let's reduce the fire.
Great. Anything you want to plug before we wrap up? Anything special you want to?
Just that it's amazing and sad how stupid this war that we are waiting for is. It's I think that never in history such a few people with very little understanding had so much power
Yeah.
without any restraints.
Yeah.
And when it comes to the Middle East, the gap between the security, the real security, and what we're told is security is unbelievable.
Yeah.
This war is not about nuclear weapons.
Yeah.
This war is not about security.
Yeah.
This war is about two warmongers with too
Yeah.
much power and too little
Two egos.
restraints.
Yeah.